It was drunk flirting. He surprised me with divorce papers. Hey, true story. I realized that what happened to me fits right in with that lineup. I'll start from the beginning. It all began in Mill Run, Pennsylvania, back in 2016. I wasn't looking for love that day, just a peaceful weekend away. I'm an architecture nerd, not professionally, but I've always admired the work of Frank Lloyd Wright. So I decided to finally take a tour of Falling Water, his famous masterpiece built over a waterfall. If you've ever been there, you know it's something out of a dream. The sound of rushing water beneath your feet, the scent of pine in the air, that strange harmony between nature and design that feels almost spiritual. I was standing by one of the outdoor viewing decks, waiting for the next tour group to start, when I noticed her. Her name was Emily. She was wearing this simple cream-colored sweater, holding a camera, snapping pictures of everything like it was her first time out in nature. She had this genuine excitement about her, not the fake kind people wear when they're trying too hard, but the kind that makes you feel lighter just standing near it. We started chatting because she asked me if I could take a picture of her by the falls. I cracked a joke about how I was more of a crooked horizon photographer than a professional, and she laughed. That laugh, it hit me. Bright, unguarded, alive. We ended up talking the entire tour. She was from Erie, about 3 hours away from where I lived in Lancaster. We had grown up in different parts of Pennsylvania, but shared a lot in common. Small town upbringing, strong family ties, a love for road trips and coffee shops that stay open late. By the time the tour ended, I didn't want to say goodbye. We exchanged numbers and promised to stay in touch, which everyone says but rarely means. But that night, we were texting. The next day too, and the next. Within a month, we were seeing each other every weekend. At first, the distance was a challenge. It's not easy maintaining something when you're hours apart, but we made it work. Sometimes I'd pack a weekend bag, drive up to Erie Friday night, and crash at her place until Sunday. Other times, she'd come down to Lancaster and stay with me. I'd have the fridge stocked with her favorite wine, Pinot Grigio, and she'd always bring homemade cookies her mom taught her to bake. We'd go hiking, cook dinner together, or just sit around watching Netflix. There wasn't anything flashy about our relationship, but it felt real. 2 years went by like that, and honestly, they were some of the best years of my life. By the time our 2-year anniversary came around, I was convinced she was the one. I dated before, but no one had ever made me feel so at peace. She was kind, thoughtful, funny, and affectionate. The kind of woman who'd write me notes and tuck them in my luggage when I drove home on Sunday nights. So I started planning to propose. I did it at the very same place we met, Falling Water. I arranged a private tour and proposed to her by the viewing deck overlooking the waterfall. She cried, said yes, and we spent the rest of the weekend floating on cloud 9. We got married the following spring in a small ceremony in her hometown. I'll admit, seeing her walk down that aisle, man, I thought I hit the jackpot. The first year of marriage was incredible. We both adjusted to living together in Lancaster. She got a new job at a marketing firm, and I was working as a project manager for a construction company. Life was stable. We traveled, laughed, hosted friends for dinner parties. She was my best friend and my wife, the person I trusted most in the world. Then came the pregnancy. When she told me she was pregnant, I was nervous but overjoyed. I remember her showing me the positive test in our bathroom. She was crying, smiling, shaking a little. We hugged for what felt like hours. I started building a nursery, painting the walls light green because we wanted the gender to be a surprise. Every night I'd rest my hand on her belly, talking to the baby, daydreaming about being a dad. But after our son was born, things started changing. At first I thought it was just postpartum stuff, the fatigue, the hormones, the stress. But there was something different about her. She started pulling away, emotionally and physically. We weren't intimate anymore. Conversations felt forced. She'd spend hours scrolling through her phone, claiming she was just talking to friends. When I'd walk into the room, she'd lock her screen or tilt it away. It went on for weeks. I'd ask if something was wrong, and she'd brush it off. "I'm fine," she'd say. "I'm just tired." But I could feel it, that invisible wall between us. You can tell when someone's heart isn't where it used to be. One night, about 3 months after the baby was born, she said she wanted to go out with a few coworkers to unwind. I told her to enjoy herself, but she didn't get home until almost 2 a.m. When she did, she smelled like alcohol and perfume that wasn't hers. That sweet floral kind that lingers on skin for hours. I asked how her night was, and she said it was fun, but she was too tired to talk. She went straight to bed. That's when the gut feeling kicked in. A week later, I couldn't take it anymore. One afternoon, while she was in the shower, I picked up her phone. I didn't go looking for pain, but it found me anyway. I opened her messages, and there he was, her ex-boyfriend, Tom. The conversation history wasn't long, but it was enough to gut me. Flirty emojis, drunk texts, her saying things like, "You always knew how to make me laugh," and him replying, "I still remember our nights together." The part that made my blood run cold was when he asked, "How's the baby?" And she said, "He's perfect, looks just like you used to." I swear my hands went numb reading that. It was like the air got sucked out of the room. My chest hurt, my stomach twisted, my mind was racing. I sat there staring at the screen, hoping I was misunderstanding what I was seeing. But deep down, I knew I wasn't. Something was very, very wrong. When she came out of the shower, I confronted her. I didn't yell. I just asked calmly, "Why are you talking to Tom? And why would you tell him the baby looks like him?" Her face went white. She froze for a second, then started crying. She said it was nothing, that it was just drunk flirting. Claimed she'd had a few drinks that night, out with coworkers, saw a message from him, and replied stupidly. She swore up and down that she loved me and that I had nothing to worry about. But my gut didn't buy it. So I told her I needed space. Over the next few days, she acted overly sweet, cooking my favorite meals, being affectionate, almost too affectionate. But it all felt like a performance. When someone betrays your trust, even a hug starts to feel fake. That's when I quietly started planning. I called a lawyer. I didn't want to accuse her of anything until I had proof. I also scheduled a DNA test for me and our son, something I never thought I'd do in a million years. The waiting period for those results was pure torture. Every day I'd look at that little boy and think, "Is he mine?" He had her eyes, her smile, but there were small things, the nose, the hair, that made me wonder. When the results came in, I opened the envelope alone in my truck. My hands were shaking. I still remember every word. Probability of paternity, 0%. It felt like the world stopped. All the memories, the excitement, the sleepless nights, feeding him, the hope for our family, gone, just like that. I sat there in silence for what felt like an hour, staring out the windshield, trying to breathe. I had never felt pain like that in my life. It wasn't just betrayal, it was erasure. She didn't just cheat on me. She built an entire lie around me. That night, I went home, kissed the baby on the forehead while he was sleeping, and told her I loved her one last time. I didn't mean it. I just wanted to see her face when I said it, to watch how easily she could lie back to me. The next morning, I called my lawyer and told him to prepare the divorce papers. I made a plan to serve her with both the papers and the DNA test results at the same time. I'll save the details of that day for my follow-up email because, trust me, that moment deserves its own story. The shock, the excuses, the unraveling of everything we built, it's a scene burned into my memory forever. But before I end this first email, I want to reflect on something. People talk about drunk mistakes like they're harmless, like being intoxicated absolves you from betraying someone's trust. But there's a difference between a bad decision and a calculated act of betrayal. You don't drunk flirt with your ex while holding a newborn baby that might be his. You don't risk everything for nostalgia when someone's at home loving you unconditionally. The worst part is how convincing she was. If I hadn't trusted my instincts, I might still be raising that child, thinking he was mine. And honestly, part of me wishes I didn't know, because ignorance, as cruel as it sounds, would have been easier than reality. But the truth is the truth, and I'd rather live with pain than with a lie. These past few months have been hell, but they've also been clarifying. I've learned that love without honesty is just performance. I've learned that some people can look you dead in the eye and say, "I love you," while destroying you from the inside out. And I've learned that when you discover betrayal, silence is power. I didn't rage. I didn't scream. I planned. Because sometimes revenge isn't about yelling or fighting. It's about walking away with your dignity intact while they crumble under their own guilt. After I got those DNA results, I didn't say a word to her. Not one hint that I knew. I acted normal, which felt like the biggest performance of my life. I'd get up for work, pour coffee, ask how the baby slept, go through the motions. She probably thought I was over the flirting thing, like I'd bought her story. But behind the scenes, I was working with my lawyer. I told him I wanted everything ready before I confronted her. Divorce petition, DNA confirmation documents, custody recommendations, everything. He helped me line up the paperwork, got the dates in order, and had the process server on standby. The plan was simple. I'd be home when she got served. The morning before it happened, I looked at her sleeping next to me, and I just felt done. The love was gone. It's weird how you can spend years loving someone, and then, after enough lies, it just switches off. There's no hate, no rage, just this cold, quiet emptiness. I felt like a ghost in my own home. It was a Friday afternoon. I'd taken the day off from work and pretended I had a doctor's appointment. She was in the kitchen, bouncing the baby on her hip, humming along to some song on the radio. It almost made me second guess myself. For a split second, I thought, what if I'm wrong? What if she really didn't cheat? But then I remembered that text. He's perfect, looks just like you used to. And just like that, my hesitation vanished. There was a knock at the door. She looked up and said, "Who's that?" I said, "Probably FedEx or something." She opened the door, and the process server handed her the envelope and said, "Emily Peterson?" She said yes, took the papers, and started opening them right there by the door. The baby was still in her arms. I'll never forget how her face changed as her eyes moved across the page. Confusion, then disbelief, then panic. "Robert, what is this?" I was sitting on the couch, calm as ever. "That's our divorce petition," I said. "And behind it, you'll find a copy of the DNA test." She froze. "What DNA test?" "The one that proves I'm not the father," I said, looking her straight in the eye. The silence that followed felt endless. She set the baby down in his playpen, hands shaking. You tested him?" I nodded. "I had to know the truth, Emily." Her face twisted. Anger, fear, guilt, all fighting each other. "You had no right to do that behind my back." I laughed, cold and hollow. "I had every right. I was lied to, cheated on, and made to believe a child was mine. I wanted answers, and I got them." She started crying, mumbling something about it being a mistake. Said she didn't know for sure, that it was only one time, that she never thought it would matter because I was his dad in every way that counted. That sentence right there, "in every way that counted," made my blood boil. I stood up and said, "You had me building cribs and singing lullabies to another man's child. You don't get to tell me what counts." She tried to approach me, crying harder now, but I stepped back. "Don't!" I said. Just don't. She begged me not to go through with it, said we could fix things, that she'd end all contact with her ex. She even dropped to her knees, holding onto my arm, but I didn't move. I told her the marriage ended when you opened your legs for him. This, I pointed at the papers, this is just me closing the book. Then I walked out. The next few weeks were chaos. She called, texted, emailed, nonstop. I ignored most of it. When I did answer, it was short, businesslike. She switched from crying and apologizing to being defensive and angry. One day she'd say she loved me. The next she'd accuse me of abandoning her and our son. Our lawyers handled communication after that. She tried to fight the divorce at first, wanted counseling, mediation, all that. But when her ex-boyfriend was contacted as part of the paternity discovery, he confessed. Told the court they'd been sleeping together around the same time she got pregnant. He even sent screenshots of messages where she admitted she wasn't sure who the father was. That sealed it. The judge finalized the DNA results and ruled that I had no legal or financial responsibility for the child. That part was bittersweet. On paper, I was free, but in my heart, it was like losing a child, one I'd already loved. You can't unlove a baby you held every night for months. Even knowing the truth, there were moments when I'd hear a baby crying somewhere, and my chest would tighten. Sometimes I'd see an old photo pop up on my phone and have to delete it before it broke me. When it all became official, she lost it. She called me sobbing, saying she didn't care about the money, that she just wanted her family back. Said she didn't think I'd actually go through with it. She even had the nerve to blame me for the fallout, saying if I hadn't done the DNA test, none of this would have happened. That's the level of delusion we're talking about. I told her she should thank me for not pressing for damages or defamation, because trust me, I could have. Between the false paternity and emotional distress, my lawyer said I had a strong case, but I just wanted out. I didn't want revenge through the courts. I wanted peace. She didn't take it well. She started messaging mutual friends, painting herself as the victim, said I was cold and heartless, claimed I abandoned her and the baby when she needed me most. Most people didn't buy it though. When her ex-boyfriend confirmed everything, her credibility collapsed. A few of her friends even reached out to me privately to apologize, saying they had no idea she was capable of something like that. Our final hearing was about 6 months after she was served. I'll never forget the way she looked that day, pale, exhausted, holding tissues like she was walking into a funeral. In a way, she was. When the judge confirmed the DNA results, she broke down crying right there in court. The sound of it echoed. I didn't look at her. I just stared ahead, waiting for it to be over. When the judge granted the divorce, it was like a weight lifted off me. Not happiness, but release. I walked out of that courthouse into the cold Pennsylvania air and just stood there for a minute, breathing, free. The months after the divorce were strange. I'd spent so long being Emily's husband that I forgot what it was like to just be Robert. I moved into a smaller apartment closer to work, sold our house, and started trying to rebuild my routine. The first few weeks were quiet, too quiet. I'd come home, sit on the couch, and realize no one was there waiting. No baby cries, no dinner smells, just silence. But that silence, over time, started to feel like peace instead of loneliness. I picked up new hobbies, started hiking again, rejoined my old gym, even took weekend drives to places I used to visit before I met her. One weekend, I went back to Falling Water. It was hard at first, walking through the same spots where I'd met her, where I'd proposed. But instead of feeling pain, I felt gratitude. Gratitude that life had shown me her true face before I wasted more years. I realized something on that trip. Love, when it's real, builds you. Lies, no matter how beautiful they look, always rot from the inside. She tried reaching out a few months later, of course, sent a long email saying she was working on herself, that she hoped I could forgive her someday. I didn't reply. What was there to say? Forgiveness isn't for her, it's for me. And I'm still working on it, one day at a time. People always ask, would you ever trust again? The answer is complicated. I don't hate women. I don't walk around bitter, but I've learned to listen to patterns instead of words. You can tell a lot about someone by how they handle boredom, temptation, and guilt. Emily failed all three. I haven't started dating seriously yet. I've met a few women, gone on a couple of coffee dates, but I'm not rushing. I want to make sure I'm healed, not just distracted. Because one thing I've learned is pain doesn't just disappear. If you don't process it, it plants itself deep inside you and grows into resentment. So I'm doing the work. Therapy, journaling, time with family. My parents were heartbroken when they found out what happened, but they've been my biggest supporters. My mom said something that stuck with me. The truth hurts, but it also frees. She's right. Looking back, I can pinpoint the red flags I ignored. The way she'd keep her phone upside down on the table. How she'd reconnect with old flames online and call it innocent. How her affection dropped off after the baby was born. But I was too in love, too trusting. I wanted to believe in the best version of her, not the real one. And that's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't start with the act itself. It starts with the comfort that comes from knowing someone trusts you enough to hurt them. That's what cheaters exploit. When she said it was just drunk flirting, I almost believed it. Because I wanted to. I didn't want my marriage to crumble over something stupid. But deep down, my gut knew. Your instincts don't lie, even when your heart wants to. Now I live differently. I guard my peace like it's sacred. I don't chase closure from people who shattered me. I create it myself. I've learned that you don't need to scream or get revenge. The best revenge is moving on while they're stuck drowning in the mess they made. Last I heard, she's living back near Erie, staying with her parents. Her ex-boyfriend, the baby's biological father, didn't stick around. Shocker, right? Apparently, he wanted nothing to do with her once it got real. She tried filing for child support against him, but he's been dodging it. It's ironic. She traded stability and love for nostalgia and chaos, and now she's left holding the pieces alone. I don't wish her harm. Honestly, I hope she finds whatever peace she's been chasing. But I also hope she realizes that some choices can't be undone. You can't drunk text your way out of destroying a family. This whole experience changed me. It stripped me down to my lowest point and forced me to rebuild from the ground up. I used to think strength was about keeping everything together, holding in the anger, the pain, pretending you're fine. But strength, I've learned, is walking away from what breaks you and not looking back. I've come to appreciate solitude. I spend more time outdoors, more time with myself. I've started volunteering on weekends, helping build housing for low-income families through a local project. It gives me purpose. Reminds me that even when one part of your life collapses, you can still build something meaningful out of the rubble. Every once in a while, I still dream about that baby. I'll see him smiling, reaching out for me, and I wake up crying. Then I remind myself, love doesn't have to be biological to be real, but betrayal doesn't erase the love I gave. It just redirects it. And now I'm redirecting it toward myself. I thought once the divorce was final and I walked out of that courthouse, that would be it. The end of the madness, the end of the guilt trips, the lies, and the late night texts from my ex-wife. But as I've come to learn, just because you legally cut ties with someone doesn't mean the emotional chaos stops. It's been almost a year now since the DNA results came back and the divorce was finalized. For the first few months, I tried to just keep my head down and rebuild my life. I focused on work, therapy, and spending time with my real family. The people who actually cared about me. My mom, my sister, and my best friend Jeff were my rock through it all. Jeff used to tell me, "Bro, you're too calm for a man who just got betrayed on the deepest level." And I'd laugh because, honestly, I had no tears left. I think I cried them all out that first week after getting the results. But what I didn't expect was how much damage had been done under the surface. I wasn't just heartbroken, I was hollowed out. I'd walk through my house some nights and just stand in the doorway of the bedroom that used to be ours. I had stripped it clean, new bed, new furniture, everything. But sometimes I'd catch a faint scent of her perfume, like my mind was playing tricks on me. You'd think she'd have moved on, right? She was already cheating, so moving on should have been easy for her, but no. Instead, she started calling me again, crying, apologizing, saying she didn't know what came over her. "I wasn't in my right mind, Robert," she'd say. "You were always too good for me." At first, I didn't respond. I told myself that silence was power. But after the fifth voicemail, in a single week, I finally called her back, not to reconcile, but to get closure. I wanted to know what she was thinking when she made all those choices. We met at a little diner we used to go to when we were dating. She came in looking worn out, makeup barely on, hair messy, eyes red like she hadn't slept. She sat across from me and just started crying, loud, ugly crying, the kind that makes people turn their heads. I didn't say a word. I just let her get it out. Finally, she said, "I can't live with myself, Robert. I ruined everything. You didn't deserve any of it." I asked her, "Then why did you do it? Why lie to me for years about those kids?" She looked down at her hands and said, "Because I thought I'd lose you if you knew. And when the affair started, I was already pregnant. I didn't know who the father was. I panicked. I told her, 'You didn't panic. You played God. You made a choice to deceive me every single day for years.'" She didn't argue. She just nodded. That was the first time I ever saw her take full accountability. But it didn't make me feel better. It actually made me feel worse, because hearing her admit it made it all real again. After that conversation, I decided I needed to fully detach. I blocked her again, deleted her number, and told myself that was truly the end. But just like a bad dream, she kept finding ways to pop back into my life. She emailed me months later saying she was in therapy, trying to heal, and that she hoped we could one day be friends. Friends. I had to laugh at that. The same woman who lied about me being a father for years wanted to be friends. No thanks. I ignored her, but she didn't stop. She started reaching out to my mom. Yeah, she actually called my mother to tell her she missed the family and still loved me. My mom shut it down immediately. Told her, "You had your chance. My son gave you everything, and you threw it away. Don't ever call this number again." And still, somehow, she showed up again. Literally. I came home from work one night and she was parked in front of my house, crying in her car. I stood at my door and just watched her. Part of me wanted to walk over and tell her to leave, but another part of me just felt numb. Eventually, I did go out there, and I said, "Why are you here?" She said, "Because I don't know where else to go. Everyone hates me. My life's falling apart." She told me her affair partner, the biological father of those kids, had left her. Apparently, after the truth came out, his own wife divorced him, and he blamed my ex for ruining his life. Now she was alone, broke, and renting a small apartment. I told her, "That's not my problem anymore. You made your bed. Now lie in it." She begged me to at least talk to her once in a while. Said I was the only person who ever truly cared about her. That one stung a little, I'll admit, because it was true. I did care. I cared too much. And she took that love and used it like a weapon. After that night, I told her if she ever showed up again, I'd file a restraining order. She finally stopped contacting me after that. But the damage she caused, that stayed. For a while, I tried dating again. I went out with this woman named Serena, a nurse I met at a friend's kickback. She was kind, funny, and understanding. but I just wasn't ready. Every time she'd say something nice, I'd compare her to my ex, and not in a good way, but in a way that showed I still wasn't free. I ended things with Serena because it wasn't fair to drag her into my healing process. I started therapy again and really dove into understanding trauma bonds, betrayal recovery, and forgiveness, not for her, but for myself. The therapist told me forgiveness isn't saying what she did was okay. It's saying you won't let it control you anymore. That line stuck with me. So, I started small. I deleted old photos. I threw away keepsakes from our marriage, the wedding album, anniversary cards, the stupid his and hers mugs we used to drink coffee from. I cleaned my house like I was performing an exorcism. Every trace of her had to go. And slowly, it worked. I started sleeping better, started smiling again, even started hitting the gym and eating right. My coworkers noticed I was different, more focused. One of them even said, "You look 10 years younger, man." But here's the funny part. When you start healing, that's when the universe tests you. About 2 months ago, I ran into her again. Pure coincidence. I was at the grocery store, picking up some stuff for the weekend, and there she was, standing in the cereal aisle, holding a box of Frosted Flakes. She froze when she saw me. Her hair was shorter, she'd lost weight, and she had that same broken look in her eyes. "Robert," she whispered. I nodded and said, "Hey." We talked briefly. She told me she's been working part-time, trying to get her life together, and that she hasn't dated since everything fell apart. She said, "I see you're doing better. I'm happy for you." I told her, "Yeah, I am." And that was it. I walked away. No anger, no sadness, no tears, just peace. That's how I knew I had truly moved on. Since then, I've been focused on myself. I started taking online classes in business management, thinking about opening a small side hustle, maybe real estate or a car detailing business. I'm also mentoring a younger coworker at my job who's going through a similar situation. It's strange how life works. The same pain that almost destroyed me is now helping someone else heal. True story, I can honestly say that what happened to me was the worst thing I've ever gone through, but it was also the thing that woke me up. I realized how much of myself I had lost trying to keep a relationship alive that was already dead. These days, I spend my weekends fishing with Jeff, working out, or visiting my family. I've got peace, and peace is priceless. If there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that closure doesn't come from them. It comes from within. My ex-wife can cry, apologize, and regret it all she wants, but that's her burden to carry, not mine. But, somehow, I rebuilt it stronger than it ever was. When I look back on that time, I barely recognize the man I used to be. That version of me, the one who begged for honesty, who lost sleep wondering why she'd do something so cruel. That man's gone. In his place stands someone wiser, calmer, and more in control of his life. But let me start from where I left off, after running into my ex in that grocery store aisle. For a few days after that run-in, I felt off. Not angry, not heartbroken, just reflective. It was the first time I'd seen her as human, not as the monster I'd built up in my head. She was smaller somehow, not physically, but emotionally. Like the power she once had over me had dissolved. I guess that's what healing does. It doesn't erase the past, it just takes the sting out of it. After that, life settled into something beautiful. I threw myself into my work and the online business classes I'd started. I finished my certification in business management, and with Jeff's help, I launched a small car detailing side hustle called Second Chance Auto Shine. The name had layers, you know? It wasn't just about cars, it was about me, about giving myself a second chance. Word spread fast. Within a few months, I was booked every weekend. My weekends went from sitting in silence, thinking about my ex-wife, to buffing paint and polishing interiors while old school R&B played in the background. There was something therapeutic about it, cleaning away grime and watching something dull shine again. And just like that, life started to feel good again. Then came the curveball. Well, love. I wasn't looking for it. I genuinely thought I'd be single for the rest of my life. After what I'd been through, the idea of trusting anyone again felt impossible. But life, man, it loves surprising you when you least expect it. Her name was Camille. I met her at the gym. She was on the treadmill next to mine, singing quietly to herself with her earbuds in. I couldn't help but laugh when I realized she was completely off beat but totally confident about it. After a few mornings of seeing each other, she struck up a conversation, said, "You always look like you're running from something." I told her, "Maybe I am, but I'm getting faster." We both laughed, and that was the start of it. Camille was different. She didn't pry into my past right away. She didn't demand explanations or poke at old wounds. She just showed up consistently with kindness, laughter, and honesty. We started hanging out outside the gym, coffee first, then dinner, then trail walks on weekends. She had this lightness about her, like she wasn't trying to fix me. She just wanted to walk beside me while I figured myself out. When I finally opened up and told her about everything, the cheating, the DNA results, the divorce, she didn't flinch. She just said, "You've been through hell, but you didn't stay there. That says everything about you." That was the first time in a long time I didn't feel broken when talking about it. We started dating seriously after a few months. My friends noticed the change immediately. Jeff told me, "Bro, I've never seen you smile this much since before the wedding. This woman might be your piece." He was right. Camille wasn't loud, dramatic, or manipulative like my ex. She was steady, the kind of person whose presence felt like a warm morning after a stormy night. We took things slow, no rushing, no games, just honest connection. One night while we were sitting on my back porch watching the sunset, Camille asked, "Do you ever think about her?" I paused for a second. "Not in the way I used to," I said. "She's part of my story, but she's not the whole book anymore." Camille smiled and said, "Good, because the rest of your story's looking pretty bright." I swear, in that moment, I realized I'd finally let go. But of course, peace doesn't come without a few final tests. A few months into my relationship with Camille, I got a message on Facebook from my ex-wife. I had her blocked everywhere, but she must have made a new account. The message said, "Robert, I just wanted to say I'm truly happy you're doing better. I've seen the pictures of your business and you look great. I hope one day you can forgive me for real." I didn't reply. I didn't even open it. I deleted it and blocked the account. But later that night, I told Camille about it because I promised myself I'd never hide anything again. Her response, she just nodded and said, "I trust you." That was it. No jealousy, no insecurity, just trust. And that, right there, was when I knew she was the one. A few weeks later, my ex-wife reached out again, this time through Jeff. She called him crying, asking if he could talk to me just one last time. Jeff told her, "He's moved on. Respect that." Apparently, her life had gone downhill. She'd lost her job, her car got repossessed, and the man she cheated with wasn't helping raise the kids. She was struggling. I won't lie. Hearing that didn't make me happy. I didn't celebrate her downfall. I just felt indifferent. Karma was handling it. I didn't need to lift a finger. She tried again a month later, sending a handwritten letter to my business address. Inside, she wrote about how she'd been in therapy, how she missed the version of herself she was when she was with me, and how she wished she could undo the biggest mistake of her life. I didn't respond. I just folded the letter and tossed it in a drawer. Fast forward to last month. Camille and I were driving to my mom's house for a Sunday dinner when, out of nowhere, I spotted my ex-wife walking down the street near a gas station. She looked completely different, thinner, older, and drained. For a second, she locked eyes with me through the car window. I saw recognition flash across her face, followed by embarrassment. She looked away immediately. Camille squeezed my hand and said quietly, "Keep driving." And I did. That was the last time I saw her. Now, here's the part I didn't expect. Peace isn't loud. It doesn't come with fireworks or closure speeches. It just shows up quietly one day and you realize the chaos in your chest has gone silent. I wake up now without that knot in my stomach. I go to work, come home, kiss my girl, and sleep soundly. My business is doing better than I ever imagined. I even opened a small detailing shop, a real one, with a couple of employees. Second Chance Auto Shine now has a storefront sign with my name on it. Every time I walk in, I feel proud. Not just because I built it, but because I built me. Camille's been by my side through it all. She helped me design the shop, set up social media pages, and even got me a new business logo for my birthday. A few weeks ago, I asked her to move in with me. She said yes. We're not rushing marriage or anything, but I'll tell you this true story. When I look at her, I see everything I once prayed for. The peace, the loyalty, the quiet love that doesn't need validation from anyone else. Sometimes, late at night, I'll catch myself thinking back on the man I was, broken, humiliated, angry, and I realize if that version of me hadn't hit rock bottom, I'd never appreciate what I have now. Pain can be a gift if you let it shape you instead of define you. I remember watching one of your videos a while back. You read an email from a guy who said his ex-wife's betrayal destroyed him, but also made him a better man. At the time, I didn't fully get it. Now I do. Betrayal stripped me down to nothing, but from that nothing, I built a new life, one that's real, one that's mine. And for anyone listening who's still in the middle of that heartbreak, I'll say this. You won't feel like this forever. The pain fades, the memories stop hurting, and one day you'll wake up next to someone who makes you wonder why you ever begged the wrong person to love you. I'm living proof of that. My ex-wife used to tell me I'd never find anyone who could love me like she did. She was right, because what she called love wasn't love at all. It was control, guilt, and manipulation. What I have now is peace, honesty, and respect, and that's worth more than anything. If I ever cross paths with her again, I won't have anger. I'll have compassion, because I know now she's the one who has to live with what she did, not me. I used to think revenge would make me feel better. Turns out success and peace did the job better than any revenge ever could. True story, this might be my final update. My life has finally turned the corner, and I'm proud of where I'm standing. From DNA tests and heartbreak to healing and new love, it's been one hell of a journey. But if I had to do it all over again, I'd still walk through that fire, because it burned away everything fake and left only what was real. Here's to new beginnings. Here's to second chances. And here's to finally finding peace. Robert.